Midwest College Football Podcast, joined as always by the Sad Bengals fan. I am Ryan Sadkowiak. I'm not a sad fan this week, but watching the end of that football game tonight, I knew Clinton was not going to be particularly happy, and his name tag on the show tonight reflects that, sir. I know how you're doing, but I feel obliged to ask, how are you doing?
Do you know what the total bummer is? I can't even write Happy Bengals fan next Sunday night because we play Monday Night Football. So I have to wait an additional day before I can hopefully write Happy Bengals fan. Maybe I'll just write Happy Buckeyes fan. How about that? Because at least Ohio State wins. I don't know. I'm still pretty pissed off that they did not win that game. More to the fact that I could have handled the loss if they won last week, but they didn't. So here we are. Had a wedding yesterday, so I didn't get to watch as much college football as I would have liked. But it seemed like it was a pretty interesting day for everybody being so down on the Saturday and thinking like, oh, these matchups, like you said it on Thursday. Those are the Saturdays where someone gets beat, or like Georgia, you should have gotten beat, but you pulled out.
Oh my goodness. I still cannot believe that Kentucky gave the ball back to Georgia.
I don't know what it is with coaches, but grow some balls. You are the heavy underdog, and you have a chance to beat the number one team in the country in your house, and you punt the freaking ball back to them. And you have to know in your head you're not getting the ball back. Mm-hmm. This isn't Georgia, Kentucky. These are other games, too, that we watch. I'm just like, why do it? You know what? You're going to lose going down swinging with your offense on the field. I'm just like, it drives me nuts. It's man. Like, Zach Taylor did that last week with the Patriots, so it's at all levels. But I'm just like, go for the damn thing and go win it. Earn it. That's why you lose, because you didn't try to earn it.
Well, that's like Butch Jones, Arkansas State at Michigan. They drive down the field their first drive and go for a field goal, and he doinks it. It's like, homie, you're not winning this game with field goals, man. No. You got to, like, who cares? Just
if you want to come in here and shock the world, I don't know if that would be a shock the world, but maybe shock the state and everyone else could have perceived it happening.
Well, the thing is, too, like, I'm pretty sure they got beat like 80-13 by Oklahoma last year, and no one cares. Like, who gives it? Who cares if you get blown out? Everyone expects you to get blown out. Just go. Just do it.
But damn if you win, the entire country recognizes you the way they did App State when they beat Michigan.
Northern Illinois' coach has been taking a 2-week victory lap right now, and no one's going to remember them when they lose to Buffalo next week.
Yep.
Like, you get your 2 minutes. Like, no one, like, you lost by 80 last year, and no one remembers that. Just, Jesus, man, just stop it. Just go for the jugular. It's not going for the jugular, but you got to just go down swinging. Anyway, that's our. That we should have saved that for the What the Hell Man segment. That would have been a good one.
Can I include the Bengals in my What the Hell Man segment?
Oh, yeah, we could have a bonus one. No, man, it's like I don't get the, we're taking the points. Like, it's college kickers. This isn't the NFL where it's automatic. I mean, some of them aren't automatic, but there's no such thing as taking the points. People acting like a field goal is an automatic thing these days. It's not.
Well, I'll tell you who's automatic. Harrison Butker.
He is automatic. He is automatic. Yeah, McPherson's pretty good too. McPherson's pretty good too. Week 3, it was one that was, well, we almost got the Georgia one, but otherwise it was devoid of anything chaotic, catastrophic happening, but it was still a pretty enlightening slate of games here, Clinton. I know you missed a lot of it. We're talking about Dancing the Night Away. We're talking about it here live on the YouTube channel. You can find us there at ITPCFB. Make sure you are subscribed to that. Again, I still don't know if you get notified when we go live. Probably not, because I'm subscribed to our YouTube channel and I don't get notified. But especially as we get deeper into the season, I think we're going to have some YouTube-specific stuff, particularly in about a month when we head to West Lafayette for Oregon at Purdue on that Friday night. That'll be fun.
The way Notre Dame just put it on Purdue, I think you know what we're getting, Ryan.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Not feeling super optimistic about the Boilers' chances at all this year, really. And as always, if you prefer to listen to us in your podcast feed the following morning, you can find us at Inside the Pylon, a Midwest College Football Podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. There, you want to make sure that you are following and subscribe to the show, because you will get notified as episodes drop. We're going live on Sunday, Monday, and Thursday night during the season at 9 p.m. I'm think we're just sticking with that. That seems like it's working pretty well for us. Make sure you're following us on Twitter as well at ITPCFB, where you can interact with the show there, and we will drop the links to the live stream right before we go on, as we did tonight. Clinton, I told myself I was going to download some new sounds tonight, and I completely forgot about it. That's on me.
That's all right.
I had I was going to download the Mortal Kombat fatality sound when we talked about that Purdue game, because that was
it to finish him, or
no? I don't know. It was just a fatality, because that was the Simpsons meme. Stop! He's already dead.
Gotcha.
Which I don't necessarily know that it applies to this Alabama-Wisconsin game. So we started off the day with what could have been a banger, and it was a weird one. It was a weird game here. Alabama 42, Wisconsin 10. The notable story of this one is Wisconsin quarterback Tyler Van Dyke goes down with a knee injury on the first drive of the game. I just Googled it, and I have not seen an update, but it did not look promising. My best guess would be he is done for the season. Braden Lott comes in and replaces him, and inconsistent, I guess, would be the best way to describe him. It was an interesting game in the sense that, Wisconsin moved the ball decently well early in this game, but they were kind of crestfallen by their own mistakes. Early in the game, you have a Ches Malusi fumble that Alabama immediately turns into a touchdown. Then you have a game that is at the end of the first half, Wisconsin is driving. It is 14-3, and Luke Fickell opts for a field goal on a 4th and 3. I think they weren't quite in the red zone. They were just outside of the red zone, but they missed the field goal, which would have made it 14-6. And then 2 plays and 70 yards later, Alabama's in the end zone, and it is 21-3. And that was kind of all she wrote in this one, Clinton. As you were getting prepared to dance the night away in your fancy shoes and suit, how much of this game did you catch? What were your takeaways from this game?
Saw the whole game.
Beautiful.
I was pretty saddened, not only just for TVD, but as a fan and for the Wisconsin fans with his injury right away. Obviously hope that he recovers from whatever it is, but the disappointment from maybe what could have been in this game, right? Like TVD is the more experienced starter. Obviously has some mobility aspect to his game. It's not that like Locke was a deer in the headlights, but that first drive or two he came in, you could tell he was not ready to go. And that hurts when it's in a massive game like this and you're playing an SEC team. It'd be different if they would have rolled out and they were playing Western Illinois or whatever. Would have been fine. For offense, kind of, you already alluded to it. The Malusi fumble, that hurt. I was watching that as I was trying to get ready to go, and I was just like, man, that's going to kill them. They had some momentum. They were moving the ball. Locke missing Will Pauling for a TD right before half, and that led to, Bama getting the next touchdown in 2 plays. And then Bama comes out and opens the third quarter with a touchdown. And I think that makes it 28-3 at that point.
Yep.
So my key point was the Badgers' defense had no answers from Milroe. He had 5 total touchdowns, I think 3 passing, 2 rushing. Their offense looked explosive. They clearly fixed the offensive line issues from last week.
Yep.
I don't think they had many penalties at all compared to the 9 that they had last week. And as we mentioned before, Ryan Williams is an absolute stud.
He's really good.
He is, I feel like, damn near uncoverable. And Wisconsin has good DBs. But they made it look like the old adage of when the SEC would play the Big Ten, 20 years ago, and you see SEC speed and the Big Ten guys look 2 steps slow.
Yep.
The Badgers, they just made too many mistakes to have a realistic chance to win. 2 Alabama touchdowns came after. They lost fumbles deep in their own territory. 2 other touchdowns followed unsuccessful 4th and 1 attempts, and then a missed field goal attempt. It's unfortunate. Madison was rocking early, and it just wasn't meant to be.
No, and I'm not going to be that person that sits here and dunks on Wisconsin because, we both picked Alabama to cover. But you lose your starting quarterback on the first drive, and at that point, it's just like, I guess unless you're Texas with Arch Manning sitting in the wings, and granted that was against UTSA, but that's just not a winning situation, a winning proposition. But it was something too that Wisconsin, if there's a couple different plays that go differently, even with, I mean, you sit there and think, well, if Tyler Van Dyke's in the game, does he hit Will Pauling on that touchdown? And all of a sudden it's 14-10 and you're kicking off and maybe Alabama doesn't have a chance to score before halftime. How does the second half play differently? But even then, I mean, you mentioned the Malusi fumble. At that point in the game, it was 7-3, and you just forced Bama to a 3 and out. So, I mean, that's a potentially game-changing play right there, because then Alabama goes and scores right away. It's 14-3. But then coming out of the half, Alabama gets that touchdown, so that you get that big 14-point swing there. You get, like, what's that, the 8-minute rule, where it's, you know, the 4 minutes to end the half, the 4 minutes to begin the next half. You get a 14-0 run there. That's more or less the game at that point. But Wisconsin answered that well. They go right after that, a 17-play drive that takes 8 minutes off the clock. They get a touchdown. Follow that up on defense by getting a 3 and out. And on the very next play, Cade Yakimelli fumbles it. So, I mean, again, it's 28-10 there. It's not like we're sitting here expecting Wisconsin to make a comeback with their backup quarterback at this point. But for all intents and purposes, that was the ball game right there. You don't turn the ball over, and you never know what happens. Maybe you go down, you get a touchdown. Now it's 28-17, and Bama's feeling a little bit of game pressure. Your defense coming off of a 3 and out, maybe feeling themselves a little bit. But again, you give Bama another short field, they get a quick touchdown and make it 35-10, and that was pretty much the game there. So, my question for you to wrap this game up here, Clinton, is what do you think is next for the Badgers here? So they're looking at a situation where, you know, they have a bye this week. So fortunately able to regroup a little bit with what we're assuming is going to be a full-time move to Braden Locke as the starting quarterback. Is, again, no updates on Tyler Van Dyke yet definitively, but it did not look good. And I can't imagine he's going to play in 2 weeks when they travel to USC, bare minimum. But if he's lost for the year, that also would not be surprising based on how it looked. So, I mean, you go from, you know, they don't look great the first 2 weeks. We touched on that last week. You lose this game, a game that, you know, probably expected to lose, but now you get another tough one against the Trojans in 2 weeks, and you lose that one. All of a sudden you're 2-2 going into kind of the meat of your Big Ten schedule. And although it's not particularly the most daunting start to your Big Ten schedule, I mean, you still have Penn State on here. You got Iowa, you got Oregon, you got a spunky Nebraska team on here. Are we looking at a 6-6 season again for Luke Fickell?
I think it's very possible. I think you're purely combined with the loss, how bad you lost, plus the loss of TVD, which we are both presuming is for an indefinite period. I don't think it's going to be, he's not coming back in 2 weeks if he is able to come back. You're just trying to keep the train on the tracks at this point, not let it get derailed. Find a way to win through your defense, kind of as they did last year. I mean, why am I blanking on the guy they brought in last year? Tanner Mordecai. Didn't really pan out, and Braden Locke got some starts, and Wisconsin got wins. But I was talking about this. I think it might have been another Wisconsin person on Twitter. You got to recruit the quarterback, man. You're living and dying by the portal. And again, these aren't guys you're getting for 2 years, right? You're getting a 1 year starter. This is not the Penix situation. This is not the Nick situation. They're one and done. So they have to come in right away in 4 or 5 months, learn this entire system, unless it was something they already played in. This isn't like Penix going with Grubb to Washington and having been familiar with the system, right? Like, this is a new thing for TVD. So, you know, Locke has at least been in the system. This is year 2 for Fickell at Wisconsin, right?
Yep.
So he's been in the Longo system for 2 years, so at least he has the experience. But for me, you got to keep the train on the tracks. You can't let this hit you. You are still undefeated in Big Ten play. You're 2-1 overall, and you get a chance to regroup over the next week and come out and shock USC, who could be riding very high off a win coming in week 4 over Michigan. And I think they already opened as a 6.5-point favorite. So the only last thing I did have to note about this was the worst home loss for Wisconsin since their 48-7 loss to Penn State in 2008. Wisconsin does not get their doors blown off. That's 16 years? I know we can't do math on this podcast, but I believe that's 16 years.
That checks out.
They've gotten beaten that bad at home. That's crazy.
Yes. So they'll be an interesting team to follow here once we get into conference play. Up next, the Apple Cup, Washington State 24, Washington 19. I am very sad that this was on Peacock and not on my multi-view. I don't know. I'm one of those disgusting people who watched every second of their team play in a game that was over 15 minutes into the game. But boy, this one was a barn burner. So obviously the key note in this game is the running a speed option with Will Rogers on a 4th and goal at the 1 that gets stuffed, loses 2 yards. But I think the kind of the notable series in this game is, Washington State and Washington trading scores early. The Huskies get a big stop on a 4th down play on the first drive of the game for Washington State, a 4th and 1 at the 8-yard line. They go 3 and out right after that before field goal drive for Washington State, touchdown drive for the Huskies, touchdown drive for Washington State, field goal drive for Washington. Scoreless for a little bit. Washington's got a 13-10 lead here. Washington State gets the ball back with 1:53 to go in the first half at their own 9-yard line, and in the ensuing minute and a half, they drive 91 yards and get a touchdown to go up 17-13 heading into the half. So big turning point in the game there. Washington opens the second half with a pair of long field goal drives, which was sandwiched between another Washington State touchdown. So a lot of time off the clock on that. And then obviously the big stop at the end of the game there, Clinton.
Yeah, that will be a play that lives in Apple Cup infamy.
Yes.
Jesus. You're running an option with a team that's not an option. I read the article. They interviewed one of the, I think it was defensive linemen for Washington State, and he's like, they ran an option play. They're not an option team. Right. We were pretty confident we were going to stop it because they don't run it.
Well, also,
it's not like this is Caleb Williams out here running the option.
No,
Will Rogers.
The other thing too is they played Damon Williams in this game.
Mm-hmm.
They threw the ball with Damon Williams in this game. They ran the ball with Damon Williams in this game, and you still had Will Rogers out there to run the option. Why didn't you put Damon Williams out there to run the option? That seems like it would have been more of a natural fit.
Yep, absolutely. Another thing that I had noted, my boy Jonah Coleman, also back in the win column in fantasy this week. Jonah Coleman had topped 100 yards in the first 2 games of the season. They held him to 75. Mm-hmm. I know. Did Rogers go over 300, right? But he didn't.
Yep.
He only had 1 touchdown.
Yep.
And that was the other key that I noted. The Huskies were forced to settle for 3 field goals inside Washington State's 25, which proved to be the difference in the game, obviously, with the questionable option play at the end. Mm-hmm. But the other thing, Washington was called for 16 penalties. 16 penalties, guys.
Yes.
That is their 3rd most in school history,
mm-hmm.
and it totaled 135 yards. Several of those kept the Cougars' drives alive. You're not going to win when you have double-digit penalties. It's not going to happen.
Not only that, but there was kind of an outside chance that they'd get the ball back with, I mean, it wouldn't have been a lot of time left at the end, but they had on that last drive, Washington State had the ball at the 2. They had 2 offsides penalties and then a personal foul, which basically ended the game there. So not a particularly great disciplined effort from the Huskies in this one.
Sorry to our boy Roman, man.
Yes.
I was biting for you guys, and it didn't happen. Washington, now they start Big Ten play next week against Northwestern. So a bounce back opportunity, but I don't know. Maybe Lausch has this Northwestern offense rolling in a different way now. I mean, they play defense, so we'll see how that goes.
No, for sure. And now we are we kind of look at this Washington conference schedule a little bit differently than maybe we did at the start. I mean, you touch on the Northwestern game, but then you have a Rutgers team that's looked really good through 2 weeks, a Michigan team that they look a little beatable right now.
If you have 16 penalties against Michigan, you will lose.
Yes. Yes. I mean, if you have 16 penalties against everyone except maybe UCLA on this schedule, you're going to lose.
Poor the UCLA. We need to get rid of the Northwestern mistake by the Lake jokes and just attack the Bruins. Ruin the Bruins.
Ruin the Bruins. But then, I mean, Iowa, you have an Indiana team that's 3-0. You got USC on here that looks good. You got Penn State on here. You have finished with Oregon. I mean, speaking of, 6-6, Clinton, are they going to win? We need 4 wins in the conference here. Maybe you get one this weekend, but after that, I'm not particularly feeling confident about Washington winning a Big Ten game until they play UCLA, their second to last game of the season.
Yeah. And that, again, you just go over so much turnover. Coaching staff, offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball. Roman was quite confident they were just gonna they weren't gonna replace, they were gonna reload, and that's hard to do when you're not a power like Ohio State, Texas, Alabama, Georgia. It's really hard to do. Now I still think their wide receiver trio is coming along. Again,
no, they've been passing the ball fine
and running fine. It's clearly penalties. Right?
I mean,
not this
they 31 carries for 126 yards in this one. So outside of Coleman, it was not and I mean, that's also sack adjusted for Will Rogers too. Yeah. But I mean, if you take the 6 Will Rogers runs out, that's still, they only ran it 25 times then. So, I mean, finishing drives in this one, maybe it ends differently and we're having a little bit different conversation about them. So, I mean, they moved the ball pretty well.
In a rivalry game, only giving up 24 points really isn't that
not
bad
terrible
defensively. I think
against that offense too. The Washington State's moved the ball well this year.
Yeah, your inability to convert field goals to touchdowns and penalties that killed you, cost you the game.
The other big rivalry game of the weekend, Clinton, Oregon 49, Oregon State 14. We whiffed badly on this one. We thought the Beavs would cover, and Oregon not only covered comfortably, but they had probably about as efficient of a game as you could have in this one. Every drive that was not an end of half, end of game drive ended in points for the Ducks in this one. So we kind of talked before the game that we figured Oregon State would try to run the ball, slow this game down, and they sure did that. First half drives in this one for Oregon State went 11 plays, 49 yards, 5 minutes off the clock for a missed field goal, a 13-play, 75-yard touchdown drive that went 6:38, a 5-play, 14-yard drive that ends in a punt that still took 3 minutes off the clock, and then they closed the half with a 14-play, 81-yard touchdown drive that took 6:22 off the clock. So they held the Ducks to 3 first-half possessions. The issue for Oregon State is the Ducks scored touchdowns on all 3 first-half possessions to take a 22-14 lead into the half. And then coming out of halftime, the Ducks get a long field goal drive to start, hold Oregon State to 3 and out on their first 2 possessions, 2 more touchdown drives, and all of a sudden it is 39-14. This game was over at that point. Dylan Gabriel, once again, extremely efficient throwing the ball, 20 of 24 for 291 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had 64 yards on the ground, 54 of those coming on a long touchdown run. And the Ducks were much more efficient running the ball. The offensive line looked a lot better in this one, Clinton. They averaged 7.5 yards per carry over 32 carries.
Yep. So it's safe to say the Beavers weren't skilled enough to play in the same pond as the Ducks. You just mentioned the Ducks, they ran for 240 yards total. That was more than their whole totals combined between the Idaho and the Boise State game. Added to the fact, they gave up 0 points in the second half. And then going back to the Oregon State side of things, we talked about their run game being the strength of the first 2 games. 362 yards week 1, 273 week 2. The Ducks held them to 131 yards on the ground, which put them at a 4.6 yards per carry. And then I think ours are slightly different on the YPC because I tried to adjust for the sack yards, and I had to
I gotcha.
The Ducks essentially doubled them at 8.1 yards per carry. The Oregon offensive line showed up, no sacks, after they gave up 7 sacks in the first 2 weeks. If you want to look better, keep your quarterback upright, and it'll keep your offense moving in the right direction. It doesn't derail a lot of things. So yeah, we were a big swing and a miss on this game, but it's good to see the Ducks playing well. Now they have to keep the momentum going. They get next week off, and then they're going to come back with UCLA, barring a complete 180. Yeah, 180. I don't see UCLA putting up much of a fight in that game. The Ducks are going to be able to keep their confidence rolling pretty good here. Looks like they got some other guys involved in the game as well. No Tez Johnson return TD this week. That's kind of a bummer, but they didn't need it, right? They handled what they needed to, and they dominated the Civil War.
Yes. So 2 more. You mentioned the bye week, the UCLA game on the other side of that, and then they get Michigan State the week before the big showdown. So not a lot I'm not expecting a lot of resistance for the Ducks over the next couple of weeks heading into that game against the Buckeyes. I guess Michigan State could surprise us, and Jonathan Smith
depends on which Aiden Childs.
Well, and Jonathan Smith has certainly been a thorn in the side of Oregon for the last couple of years. So
he knows how to beat them.
Yeah, he does. Next, we have Michigan 28, Arkansas State 18. I think we all thought this could be a get-right game for Michigan. We both certainly were on Michigan.
Turned into a yeah-right game.
Their trifling in the second half almost blew the under on this one, and I was very upset about that. But big story in this game, Clinton, was that Davis Warren found himself on the bench in the third quarter after his third interception of the game. None of the interceptions were particularly great interceptions to throw. I joked on Twitter, and we'll talk about this fully in a minute with Notre Dame, but I think that Michigan and Notre Dame need to have joint practices this week and call up Ken Niumatalolo or Paul Johnson or somebody and just learn how to run the triple option, because they can't. These dudes cannot throw the ball. To go to Alex Orji, he leads a long touchdown drive in the third quarter. I think it was 9 plays, 80 yards, and the only throw of the drive was the touchdown pass, a 9-yard touchdown pass.
He's got 2 TDs on the year, though.
Yes, that is 2 more than Riley Leonard, for whatever that's worth. But then their next 2 drives, they go 7 plays, 23 yards combined, punt twice, and they give up a couple of touchdowns late, which, I mean, the score of this game looks close. The score was never this close. It was never in doubt. Michigan's up 21-3 in the first quarter. They are cruising well. They're driving the ball. Look like they're about to go up 28-3 before halftime. That's when the second, I believe, interception came in for Davis Warren, and I mean, that was really it. You know, he technically did not throw a pass that hit the ground in this game. He was 11 of 14 for 222 yards, but the 3 aforementioned interceptions.
Actually, it was 100% then.
He was technically 100%, technically, in some roundabout way. Khalil Mullings is once again, and I think Michigan fans are starting to hop on this bandwagon. They're calling for him to be running back 1. He goes 15 carries, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a 38-yard rush on the touchdown drive that Orji led. And overall, Michigan runs for 301 yards. Congratulations, Clinton. One of your bold predictions hit after all of mine. One of mine kind of hit, sort of.
And I think Michigan, right? As you said, they're calling for the other half of my bold prediction to be true, and that is Mullings at number 1.
Yes, he looked good. Donovan Edwards, once again, struggled. 17 carries, 82 yards. His long run of the day was only 9 yards, so not a lot of explosivity there. And, I mean, I don't know how much stock to put in the late points that Arkansas State was getting, because at that point, it's like everyone thought the game was over for a half. But also, I mean, you can't really move the ball now. You have more questions at quarterback and offensive line than you did 2 weeks ago somehow. I mean, the defense looks not like vulnerable per se, but looks gettable. You have USC coming to town. Colston Loveland left this game in the third quarter with a shoulder injury. I didn't look to see if there was an update on him, but I feel like 7.5 points for this weekend is too low. Or 6.5 points. That spread feels too low. I feel like USC is going to boat race these guys.
Yeah. I agree. I wrote on here, Wolverines were my biggest disappointment of the week. I expected a better performance. It's a bounce back in the way because you won, but it's not a bounce back in the way that we expected you to dominate. And, you know, like we said, if Arkansas State decides to have the cojones to go for it and not try to kick a field goal that you doink early, this game very well could have went a different way, because you come out and you punch them in the mouth right away. Didn't they convert 2 3rd and longs on that drive too, I believe, in the opening drive?
Oh yeah,
to get down there. And then I was like, you have the audacity to kick a field goal after you convert those? Like, come on. You mentioned it. Michigan hit my bold prediction. I was happy about that. So Mullings was 10.2 yards per carry, and Donovan Edwards was a whopping 4.8. Now, that's not horrible, but given the level of competition you played and what your counterpart did, I would have expected you to be a little better than that. Let's get to the Michigan defense. We harp enough on their offense. I'm going to harp on their defense a little bit. Underwhelming again. Only 1 sack and 3 tackles for loss. You did get 1 INT from Makari Page, so you got a turnover there. I'm starting to grow concerned.
Did you see that play though? It was like he threw it to Makari Page.
Yeah.
Just lobbed it into the corner of the end zone, and he was like a center fielder.
Yeah, I'm starting to get concerned about this vaunted Michigan D-line, Ryan. This was the backbone that they were supposed to be able to rely on this whole season until they got settled in with the new quarterback. Now, again, I think quarterback is way worse off than we thought. I think it's going to take heroic defensive performances to win with the way the quarterbacks are playing. I know it's a new DC in Martindale, but we heard all off season, Wink Martindale, he's the man, he's coming in. Well, guess what, guys? He got canned from the Giants job for a reason. Yeah. And now you're all hyped because he has some type of affiliation with your previous two DCs. That doesn't mean he's good. Yep. He looks more like Don Brown than he does Jesse Minter. So there's been questions about his play calling. Is he being too aggressive? Is he not running enough zone? It's like, so, you also would think their starting 4 defensive line would be able to generate more stats, and they're not at this point. So before I ask just your general thoughts on the defense, I did have another note. Both the passing and receiving yard leaders in this game were from Arkansas State. Now, they weren't impressive, but just the fact that you had 2 categories that you couldn't lead Arkansas State in as pretty sad. So just, a couple more thoughts from you, Ryan, on the defense and kind of where you are with that.
I mean, it's also one of those things too, that you're on the field for so much that, I mean, at a certain point, the dam is not, I don't want to say the dam is going to break because that's not entirely fair. Michigan actually outpossessed Arkansas State 35-25 in this game too. So I don't know. We kind of talked about, I kind of offhandedly mentioned it with Broom when we talked to him in the summer. You bring in these NFL DCs that don't have college experience, it goes one of 2 ways. It's either they're really good or they just cannot cut it at all. And that's not to say that this is way too early to be piling on Wink Martindale at all here, but the early returns certainly aren't inspiring a ton of confidence, particularly given what they have coming down the pipe this week.
What are you going to do to stop USC? You don't think Lincoln Riley's not going to be able to outsmart you? If you're going to want to run man and sit the way you do, he's just going to run crossing routes just like Urban Meyer used to do against Don Brown, and they're going to take you up and down the field, and they're going to spank you.
Something else that I was kind of thinking about too is Michigan's offensive coordinator was not their offensive coordinator last year. That was Sharon Moore. So not only, like, if you look at this offense, so not only do you have a new quarterback, an entirely new offensive line, you have an offensive coordinator who is an offensive coordinator at this level for the first time in his career. He was Old Dominion's offensive coordinator in 20 and 21. So you're looking at a situation here too, where it's just like, you don't have experience on the offense. The guy calling the plays, can he call plays to hide these deficiencies? Like, it does not feel like a good situation on the offensive side of the ball for the Wolverines right now.
And I believe USC had the week off this week, so their defense is getting rested, refreshed. They're going to come after you because they know all they have to do is stop the run, and you won't beat them because you can't throw over top on them.
Well, and what did we kind of talk about too after they played LSU is USC is gettable in the secondary, but their run defense looks pretty good. Who the hell on this Michigan's roster is going to get USC in the secondary?
Well, your top dude, Colston Loveland, may not even be in. So now you're in big trouble. Big trouble.
I might have to lock this one up right now. That's going to be my lock of the week.
That might also be mine.
We'll
see where the lines come. But
I was going to say, I'm going to have to get in on this before it goes up over a touchdown.
Hey, I also, off the snide, I got my first lock of the week. Indiana, baby.
I don't want to talk about that right now.
And you did not get yours, so that $20
I almost listen. I know my 20. I know. I told you as soon as I put real money on it, it was going down the toilet. They almost. We'll talk about Iowa in a minute, but they almost came back to get it. They ended up almost covering that game. Next, Clinton. Illinois is ranked. The number 24 Fighting Illini 30, Central Michigan 9. We have a ranked matchup on Friday night this week. Illinois and Nebraska. Who had that on their bingo card? Who had that on their bingo card before the season, man? What? Okay, so we both had Illinois minus 18. I did not get out on this early enough. I got Illinois real money at minus 21, so I pushed on that. this. Good for me, not good for me. Luke Altmaier looked pretty good in this game. He was 19 of 29, 242, and 2 touchdowns. Pat Bryant, though, dude, 7 catches, 102 yards, 2 scores. The Illini have a passing attack now, man. I think this had a chance to be a little bit more lopsided than it was. Illinois had a short field. They missed a field goal. They were driving the ball pretty well towards the end of the first half and had to settle for a field goal. Well, actually, it was middle of the second quarter. My bad. But a couple of points left on the board there, and then they get a quick touchdown out of the half field goal. So good win for the Illini. They're 3-0.
You mentioned Bryant. I'm going to also mention Franklin. They combined for 168 yards. Obviously, both the TDs went to Bryant, and they continue to be the main targets for Altmaier. He's not having to rely on Tip Raymond to be his top wide receiver, even though he was a tight end. He's got some playmakers on the outside. Also, running backs. I didn't have as much noted on the running backs this week. I know Fagan didn't get you as much as you had hoped when you installed him into your fantasy lineup. But a fun one, I'm going to butcher this name, but Ethan Moxaleski kicked a school record field goal of 59 yards as time expired in the first half in this one. So congratulations to Ethan with owning the new school record. Illinois, though, this is something they have to clean up, or they will lose games in Lincoln, right? Yes.
Yes.
They had 10 penalties for 81 yards.
Not good.
And that's another thing that kept them from probably pulling away more in this game than were going to. Bielema post-game, I was reading the article, some of his comments, he was not thrilled. He said we left some out there to be desired, that we should have done better. So you cannot have this happen. Your next 2 games are Nebraska and Penn State. If you have 10 penalties, you will lose by double digits. I don't care how good your defense is. And speaking of the defense, pretty solid performance, right? Only allowing 9 points. A little less on the turnovers this week after getting Daniels for 3 picks last week. The Blue and Orange defense only had 1 pick that did not lead to any points. However, they did not need them in this situation. Overmatched the Chippewas pretty easily. But boy, I got to make sure I got nothing planned for Friday night because I need to be in front of. So this past Friday night, I put Elliot to bed and I fell asleep in his room. I came down as I'm walking downstairs. I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm excited. I keep watching this Arizona-Kansas State game in peace. And I came down. It was 28-7. I was like, well, never mind. I guess I'll just go back to sleep. Right. So I do not want that to happen this week because, first of all, this game really means something to us because we covered the Big Ten. But this is a hell of a game. This is a fun game. Illinois, I know we're going to preview it on Thursday. Maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow night with Jeffrey a little bit. But Illinois plays, not that Nebraska doesn't, but Illinois has forced some turnovers so far in the season. Raiola just threw his first pick, I think, in the early fourth quarter this past week.
Yep.
If they can force a young freshman into turnovers, they could come into Nebraska and steal one. I don't know what the early line is on this one. Hopefully, we don't have any FCS games this week, so we can actually get some lines. Ohio State Marshall might as well be an FCS matchup, but
accurate.
If they force Raiola into a few turnovers, they might be walking out of Lincoln with a W.
They're going to ruin your 7-0 matchup there at the end of October.
Oh, they're not. They're not going to beat them. Did you hear that? The fatality in?
Yeah, I did.
Must be Purdue time.
Notre Dame 66, Purdue 7. Clinton. This game somehow makes me more angry about last week.
It should. Where the hell was this performance?
What the hell were you doing a week ago? You will never be able to convince me that they did not spend the entire week preparing for Northern Illinois by just screwing around and being like, all right, we're going to script the first drive and then we're just going to work on some stuff. Like legitimately, there's no other explanation because Purdue's not great. They might be the worst team in Power 4, but they're still a Power 4 team and they could beat Northern Illinois.
Who said they'd win maybe 2 games this year? That'd be me. That was the first 2 they played.
I believe this was the worst. This was the worst home loss in Purdue history. Maybe it was the most lopsided game in this rivalry series, at least.
I swear I had the stat on that, but maybe it's other ones I did. But yes, I did see that. I think this is the worst Purdue loss in history. For the most points they gave up.
So if you told me before this game that Steve Angeli would get the first offensive series out of halftime for Notre Dame on Thursday night, I would have been like, oh my God, they are down 10-0 at halftime.
Or Riley Leonard's arm fell off.
He looked good. Like, he looked healthy. I'm not going to say he looked good because they basically just ran him like Oklahoma used to run Blake Bell back in the day. Just,
oh gosh,
the quarterback power. They got their Belldozer package. This game, man, it has lit Notre Dame message boards on fire because the people who did not want Riley Leonard to start still don't want Riley Leonard to start, and they're using this game as evidence because he's still not thrown a passing touchdown this year. Steve Angeli came in and he threw 2 passing touchdowns. He threw a couple of really good deep balls in this game, and they still are reticent to throw the ball downfield with Riley Leonard. I thought Mike Denbrock schemed up this first half really well for him, playing to his strengths, getting receivers, tight ends moving laterally in motion before plays, setting up RPOs, using a lot of misdirection motion. I really like Kyron Williams and Audric Estime, but Jeremiah Love has a level of burst that neither of those two guys had. And I don't know that a Notre Dame player has had that level of burst in my cognitive lifetime, at least. Like his touchdown run in the first quarter when he just, it very much was like you're playing NCAA 25 on varsity level and you just take a stretch and you just run around the corner and run past everyone. That's exactly what it looked like. Just absolutely absurd burst on that man. But I just like, I don't know what to make of this game. So like, let me ask you this, Clinton. I know you probably didn't watch this game because you were preoccupied, but after kind of reviewing this game, does it change your overall opinion on Notre Dame at all?
Dude, did you read off my damn sheet? I literally said, question to Ryan, do you use your confidence back in them or do you still want to wait and see?
No. Like, so here's my thing with Notre. Like, this is such a weird spot to navigate because if you beat a Power 4 team by 60 points, that is an impressive win. I don't care how bad it is. But nobody is going to sit at this game at the end of the year when you're looking at Notre Dame's resume and they'll be like, wow, they beat Purdue by 60. They are really good. It's a good first step. You should absolutely be beating teams like this by 60. You should have beaten Northern Illinois by 60. Like, no matter what happens for the rest of the year. So, like, maybe this is like me inhaling copium to just the most ridiculous amounts. But my hot take is that Notre Dame losing last week to Northern Illinois is probably the best thing that could have happened to their overall psyche for the season because this schedule is so like mediocre that they were going to trip up and lose. Like just the way that this program has been the last 3 years, they were going to trip up and have a game like that at some point this year. And you can't do if you do that now, like that is such an indictment on your program culture that like you can't recover from that. Because now if you're Penn State and you have a clunker against Bowling Green, it's like, oh, well, we almost lost to Bowling Green, but whatever, we didn't. No one's going to think about that at the end of the year. No one's going to be like, oh, well, Penn State almost lost to Bowling Green. It's just a blip on your schedule. Notre Dame is going, like, whenever they had, like, when the ESPN playoff shows come out, if Notre Dame is still a one-loss team in November, when those start to come out, every single conversation around Notre Dame is going to be, but they lost to Northern Illinois. You have to wear that around your neck for the rest of the season. So as a coaching staff, if you're having a bad week of practice, guys are screwing around, slacking off, you stop practice, you blow your whistle, and you MF them into oblivion saying, you guys are not good enough to sit here and not take a team on your schedule seriously. Because the last time you did this, you got beat by a mediocre MAC team. Sorry, Northern Illinois. They're still ranked. They're good. But you can't do that if you end up beating them because then you get tuned out. But like you can point to that as a coaching staff. If you're a senior leader on this team, you can point that to your teammates and say, you guys are not good enough to overlook anyone on this schedule. And that is the type of killer mentality that, like, if Notre Dame comes out and plays as efficiently and aggressive as they did against Purdue, they're boat racing everyone that is on this schedule, and that includes USC. If that Notre Dame team shows up in the Coliseum, they're beating that USC team by 25 points. The issue is, I've never seen that Notre Dame team before.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem with the Marcus Freeman era is your highs are so high, your lows are so low. It's so volatile week to week. This team is impossible to predict. I still have no idea what's going to happen this week. They could come out and lay an egg and lose to Miami. There's nothing about this game that changed my opinion on this team.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a little bit. You get the first one, but there's nothing about this game that buys any sort of goodwill back with the fan base, because they sit there and they look and they're like, good, why didn't you do this last week? Yeah. And that's a good place for the Notre Dame fan base to be, because I'm sick and tired of this mediocre, we're going to go 9-3 nonsense. You should expect excellence from this team. If your team is capable of scoring 70 points against a Power 4 opponent, you should expect frickin' excellence week in and week out. And we haven't seen it. So until we see it, I'm not going to buy it. I'm refusing to buy it until I see it on a consistent basis.
For me, I think they've earned a little bit of confidence back for me. They were my bounce back performance of the week, obviously, coming off a loss, and you put up points like this on a Power 4 team. Run game looked good. Love, Price, and Leonard combined for over 300 yards on the ground, 5 TDs between the three. The defense, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks, 5 TFLs, and a defensive touchdown. Pretty good spot. My concern is still the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Riley Leonard played better on the ground. Not in the air.
Oh, no. Someone posted a screenshot of one of the scrambles that he had in the second quarter. He had Jeremiah Love standing on the 10-yard line, 15 yards beyond any Purdue defender, and nobody was looking at him. Mm-hmm. And he was when you played backyard football growing up and you're just standing there jumping, and that's what he was doing. And Riley Leonard's looking right downfield at him, and he still didn't throw him the ball.
No, I watched that. I'm not a huge fan of Zach Smith, but I do enjoy if I can get some clips of watching someone who knows how to break down play. And that stuff from Riley Leonard against Northern Illinois was sad. Mm-hmm. Really sad. He looks like he doesn't know what he's doing when he throws the ball.
No.
But, this is the type of response you expect to see after losing a game you shouldn't, or at least you hope to see. I don't know about the rest of the season, but this showed me a mark of progression in Freeman as a coach. He bounced back. He got his team ready. Didn't have another clunker, as the Solid Verbal says. Win your clunkers. They could have kept their heads down, lazily walked into this game, and got sniped again, but they didn't. So as I said, Notre Dame gets my bounce back performance of the week. Let's see if they can keep the momentum rolling next week. Because as we know, Florida State certainly doesn't look daunting down at the end of the season. Oh, boy.
No.
Mike Norvell is going to be taking the first train out of there here soon.
Yeah. So I wonder if maybe we'll see it during Louisville, because Louisville has a pretty good defensive line and in theory should be able to limit Notre Dame's rushing capabilities with the athletes that they have. I wonder if they use Steve Angeli like Brian Kelly used Tommy Rees in 2012, whenever Golson was a freshman starter, and when they needed, a 2-minute drive, or they really needed points in a situation, they just put Tommy Rees in and let him run a different version of the offense. Because Steve Angeli had a couple really nice passes in this game. He now
someone
has
you trust, you could do it.
He now has 2 more touchdown passes on the year than Riley Leonard, but he also showed in the second half probably why he's not the best fit for the Mike Denbrock offense. He had a 25-yard run. He looked, I wouldn't say quick, but not immobile, but there were a couple times where he'd scramble out and he had defenders barreling down on him. And whereas Riley Leonard would have tucked it and ran and probably picked up 10, 15 yards, Steve Angeli just got smoked behind the line of scrimmage. So not great in that sense, but definitely a better thrower of the football. I thought that, they got all 4 quarterbacks in this game. That was kind of interesting. Kenny Minchie looked pretty good. I don't think he's going to factor this year, but he seems to be a nice mix of can throw and can run, but that seems like a worst case scenario if he's having to play. On the big one note on this one for Notre Dame, already kind of thin on the offensive line. They lose their starting center and starting right guard to injuries in about a 5-minute span in this game. Billy Schrouth, the right guard, was in a boot on the sidelines. That did not look particularly great. I'm not sure what the deal is with Ashton Craig. I don't know if it was a knee or an ankle, but also having lost the starting left tackle before the season, you're now down 3 starting offensive linemen. And somehow you lose 2 offensive linemen in this game, and you gained more experience on the offensive line because your center was your starting left guard last year, and your replacement right guard was your starting right guard last year. So funny how that works. Also lost starting defensive end Jordan Botelho to a knee injury. He's been having a really good year, so that could be another significant loss for the Irish. All 3 of those happened in like a 7-play span. It was ridiculous.
Certainly not luck of the Irish.
End of the game before someone else gets hurt. On the Purdue side of things, I have no idea what Ryan Walters was doing playing his first team offense in the 4th quarter of a 60-point game when Hudson Card was getting his ass beat. I don't know if you just thought he needed the reps or what, but that seemed kind of foolish.
Not gonna lie, I didn't even put any notes down for Purdue. My only notes were for Notre Dame because it was so ugly.
Yeah, it just
there was
they
nothing
could not
to it. You just got overwhelmed.
Could not move the ball at all. I felt bad for Hudson Card because he was just getting obliterated. He tried I don't know if it's a Mahomes thing where you put the ball into your other hand and try to throw it away, and he threw a pick 6 to a defensive end, so that's kind of surmised. No, the play that truly surmised the game for Purdue is at the end of the first half, they go 3 and out, and Notre Dame doesn't even take a timeout to try to get the ball back. They punt it to Notre Dame with, I don't know, they had like 30 seconds left, and Riley Leonard actually threw a pretty good pass to Jaden Greathouse, but it gets called back for a holding penalty. They run a draw to Price, and he goes for a 70-yard touchdown run. That pretty much surmised the game right there. So yeah, good get-right game for Notre Dame. I'm still going to remain skeptical because that is my nature with this stupid-ass football team. Next on the docket, we had Michigan State 40, Prairie View 0. Spartans got up early and kind of coasted the rest of the way. Mm-hmm. Big pick 6 at the end of the first half really kind of salted this game away. A 100-yard pick 6 as Prairie View was driving towards the end of the first half. Only 3 second-half drives in this one for Michigan State. They went 14 plays, 60 yards for a field goal, 12 plays, 84 yards for a field goal, and then 10 plays, 56 yards for a touchdown. So very methodical in this one. Aiden Childs was perfectly fine in this game. Backup Tommy Schuster got a lot of play. He was 8 of 10 for 97 yards. One note I did have on them is their stats running the ball were a little bit misleading. Nate Carter had a 60-yard touchdown run, but outside of that, they only averaged 3.8 yards per carry, so not particularly great against an FCS team there, Clinton.
Yeah. I kind of noted when I looked over this, not an overly impressive stat line, passing, rushing, or receiving for Michigan State this week, but you did what you needed to win. Childs, no turnovers. But again, I felt like kind of a fairly pedestrian performance against an underwhelming foe, but that's life with a first-time starting quarterback. Nate Carter, 11.4 yards per carry, as you just alluded to, as rushing yards. In the defense, anytime you can get a shutout, it's impressive. I don't care who the opponent is. If you shut a team out, that's impressive. They had 3 sacks, 10 TFLs. We talked about the Brantley 100-yard interception return. Well, apparently, I was reading, it sounds like he had another one wiped out 7 plays earlier by a roughing the passer call. So he had 2 pick 6s in the same drive.
Good for him.
And one got one taken off. Here's an interesting thing I had marked on Twitter today. Chris Solari reposted this. Prior to yesterday's game against Prairie View A&M, the last time 2 Michigan State football quarterbacks ran for a touchdown in the same game was October 15th, 2011. Oof. Ryan, can you name who those 2 quarterbacks were?
2011.
This was against Michigan.
Would one of them have been Cousins?
Yes.
Oh, who else was on that? Connor Cook? Was he on that team?
It wasn't Cook.
Then I do not know.
It says it was Andrew Maxwell.
You could have given me 300 guesses, and I would not have come to that name. I could not have come to that name.
But that was an interesting tweet that I found, so I wanted to make sure I saved that. This is a really fun Sparty team with Jonathan Smith. They travel to Boston College for a primetime matchup next Saturday. I assume that's ABC. Wait a second. If it's BC, it's be ABC then.
ACC. No, it's ACC Network, Clinton.
So it's ACC Network primetime.
I will not be able to watch that game.
When I read that said primetime matchup, I was like, wow, that's pretty bold to put Michigan State and BC in primetime, but it's ACC Network. I get it.
Yep.
Well, we just had Maryland, Virginia give us a nice game this past week in the primetime, but
again, I could not watch it because who gets the ACC Network? Not me.
I do.
Do you really?
On YouTube TV, I get it.
Huh.
I've always had it.
Oh, I don't get it. Maybe I got to look harder.
Maybe it's not in your marked channels.
That's what I don't think it's in my. I don't think it's in the Michigan market.
Oh, well, that's a bummer then. I get it.
I guess
you're too far north.
Yeah, that's
But
unfortunate.
BC's a for real team. They damn near took out Missouri.
Mm-hmm. They are good,
and we saw what they did to the elite Florida State. But it's gonna be that's gonna be a fun game. This is a good test for Michigan State to see what they can do against Bill O'Brien. Thomas Castellanos, really good quarterback, and then I think his last name is Ward.
Yeah,
running back for BC is really good. Yep. They play good defense. This is a good opening test away game for Aiden Childs. They went into Maryland and won, but outside the Big Ten.
So they're 3-0. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we necessarily expected them to be 3-0 at this point, but this schedule
gets nasty real quick.
So you have a Boston College game that looks a lot tougher than it did preseason. Then you get Ohio State. Then you get Oregon. Then you get Iowa. Then you get Michigan. Then you get Indiana, who is 3-0, and I don't know if they'll be ranked. Good. I don't know if they'll be ranked by that point in November, but it could be. You have an Illinois team that is 3-0 and may or may not be ranked by then. Then you have Purdue and Rutgers. There's not a lot of games that you look at on this schedule for Michigan State and say, oh, yeah, that's a win. That's not great, man. That's like we're sitting here like, only 3 wins from bowl eligibility, but it would be quite impressive if Michigan State is able to win 3 of their next 9 games. I am not going to lie to you. This is a brutal schedule.
5 and 7.
Yeah. So
at this point, looking at it, just given what BC is, and I would assume they'll beat Purdue, but again, that's multiple weeks from now. They might be a better team. But you also can think, Childs is only going to get better as he goes. Because Illinois still is, Kansas really not the team we thought, and Illinois' win isn't as good. And maybe by the time we get to that point, I don't know.
Kansas did lose to UNLV this weekend.
Hey, they're going to be in the new Pac-12, okay? They're going to be fine.
Not yet. They need to be Las Vegas State. They need to be Las Vegas State to get that invite.
They'll get UNLV and Nevada in there. They'll take the whole state.
No, man. So that's that'll be interesting to kind of, not that I'm sitting here wishing away the season, but that'll be interesting to kind of see and assess Michigan State at the end of the year, because I think this is a team that could end up being a lot better than their record indicates, just given the kind of that draw that they got in Big Ten play is not necessarily particularly favorable. Mm-hmm. Speaking of shutouts, Minnesota 27, Nevada 0.
Did you notice I tried to segue you there when I said UNLV in Nevada, the whole state of Nevada?
No, that went
into this next game.
Right over my head. Darius Taylor is back, and he is fabulous. 11 carries, 124 yards, 2 touchdowns, 80-yard touchdown run in this one, and a stifling defense.
Caught a touchdown pass, too.
Caught a touchdown pass from Max Brosmer, 5 catches, 37 yards. Just build the whole boat, row the boat made out of Darius Taylor. Stifling defense in this one for Minnesota, only 1.9 yards per carry for Nevada. Minnesota 4 sacks in this game, and it was never really in doubt. 20-0 at halftime, and then they just kind of coasted there in the
and they covered.
Half. And they covered.
They had to cover.
I was not great with my picks this week, but I did get that one right.
I had about the same notes on this as you. Taylor's 80-yard touchdown run in the third quarter was the 6th longest rushing touchdown in school history. So that's a cool little piece to have. Kerry Brown had 2 picks. Ethan Robinson 1, so 3 on the day for the defense. You mentioned the 4 sacks. They also had 4 TFLs. Brosmer continues to look like he's settling in more. Minnesota might wreak some havoc on some teams this year as they go. Mm-hmm. They're going to give you a battle at least. If this was the team we could have seen show up week 1, now obviously you did not have Darius Taylor.
Yep.
They'd probably knock off North Carolina. Unfortunately, they did not. Again, it's an out-of-conference game, so in the grand scheme, it doesn't matter. But, the Gophers did what we expected them to do. They overwhelmed another FCS-level opponent. I know Nevada is not FCS, but and now you're going to Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
So is this what is this, the Floyd of Rosedale?
Floyd of Rosedale. Clinton, that's a great segue here.
Slime.
This is a great segue here because they are getting an Iowa team that has shown a propensity for giving up explosive plays this season. Iowa 38, Troy 21. My lock of the week failed. I bet the under in this game. That failed. I don't know what is going on with this Iowa defense, man. We got a 63-yard touchdown pass, a 77-yard punt return touchdown, a 62-yard touchdown pass. They are giving up yards in chunks here, but I mean, outside of that, they're not really giving up much else. So it's kind of boom or bust here, man.
Better thank your lucky stars. Caleb Johnson is a monster.
Yeah.
And
oh my Lord, yes.
And that your defense scored 7 points for you in this game. I'm not sold on Cade McNamara being this team's quarterback.
No.
I think they really need to think long and hard about making the move to Sullivan if they want to get through this season with only one more loss, being to Ohio State, and be 10-2. And then I don't know if you're going to get in the playoff with that, but who knows what will happen in the season. You might get in the Big Ten championship. I don't know. But the passing game is very so-so, and they got to improve if they're going to reach our preseason expectations that we had for this team. Because this offense right now, outside of Caleb Johnson, looks pretty much the same. Now, I know they scored 38 points, but as far as explosive abilities in the pass game, I don't know. And then we just mentioned it. You're going to play Minnesota now. So, and then that's your, I think you get a bye week after that.
Yeah.
And then that's your one final offensive tune-up before you play Ohio State.
So
you better figure it out.
Yeah, I'm doing math in my head here, Clinton. So Troy only rushed for 24 yards in this game. They had 253 total yards. So they had 2 touchdown plays that accounted for half of their yards in this game. So it's not like we're sitting here and talking about an Iowa defense that's fundamentally broken, but there is something that is and again, I'm not going to sit here and pontificate as if I watched every play of this game and broke down the film and was like, so-and-so busted a coverage or whatever, but they need to figure, because this is not the first, this has happened. That happened in the Iowa State game. It cost them that game. Phil Parker needs to figure out what is going on in the back end of that defense that is causing these busts to happen, because while it is fine and dandy for you to give up, 130 yards or whatever over the course of almost the entire game, you can't be giving up 60-yard touchdown passes every game. You can't be giving up 2 of them in a game once you get into Big Ten play against teams that are better than Troy, who is now 0-3 on the season.
Mm-hmm. Well, you saw it happen at the end of the Iowa State game. Defense was pretty solid, and then they took what they needed to go win that game.
Mm-hmm.
So Iowa, fix your passing game and settle the defense down, or it's going to be a long Big Ten season for you.
Up next, Clinton. I moved something around a little bit from when we did this on Thursday. Indiana 42, UCLA 13. Oh, the Hoosiers. Rank Indiana, cowards.
Hoosiers.
Rank Indiana, you cowards. I'm actually kind of shocked that not that Illinois is ranked, because I think that's well-deserved, and not that Indiana's necessarily beaten anyone fantastic this year, but I was a little surprised to not see them kind of sneak in there. I'm looking at the others receiving votes right now, and they would be 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34th.
Okay.
Your 34th ranked Indiana Hoosiers.
A win over Charlotte this week will get you in the top 25. No.
Good. Maybe. I
mean, if they keep looking how they are, they might.
Yeah, so the story through the first couple weeks, and again, level of competition, I get it. FIU is not particularly great. Western Illinois is not good at all. But a lot of running the football early, and they kind of did it in a inverse way today. Curtis Rourke, 25 of 33, 307 yards for 4 touchdowns in this one. The OU connection to Miles Cross was bumping in this one. He had 6 catches for 90 yards and a score. Indiana did a really good job of really setting the tone early in this one, going out and scoring on their first drive. They forced a fumble on UCLA's second play of the game and then turned that next series into a touchdown. And by that point, that's kind of all she wrote. UCLA, they had a little bit of success intermittently moving the ball, but they were never really able to threaten at that. I thought that there was an opportunity, kind of halftime first drive for UCLA for them to get back in the game. They had a nice little drive there at the end of the first half to make this, I think it was, I want to say 21-10 by that point. Mm-hmm. Let me check my math on that. 21-7, and then they came out. They got a field goal to open the second half. So good job by the Hoosiers defense to shut that one down. And then they had 3 straight touchdown drives of their own to really ice this one away. So really efficient game. Maybe a little concerning that with a increased level of resistance from a defense, the running game wasn't as effective. Not that they'll necessarily be challenged over the next couple weeks, because I don't know that Maryland's defense is particularly fantastic either, but certainly when you get to Northwestern and Nebraska, you're going to have to be a little bit better running the football against those teams.
The thing too you look at is this team is just continuing to build confidence, right? Mm-hmm. Wins are confidence, and they're not just winning barely, they are dominating. They walked in and dominated a Power 4 opponent, took them to the woodshed. Excuse me. So we said Rourke, had another monster day through the air. Across 3 games, he's thrown for 755 yards, 7 TDs, no picks. His QBR is 89.4, and he has a completion percentage of 74.3%. Here's another fun stat about third down for Curtis Rourke in this game. He was 9 of 9 for 128 yards on third down. Ice in the veins. Justice Ellison, we talk about the run game not being as explosive as last week, but he did have his 3rd straight game with a touchdown. Defense stout again. They held UCLA to 13 points. They held them under 100 yards rushing and 150 yards passing. And I had some more fun facts that I found about this game. Curt Cignetti is the first Hoosiers coach to begin his tenure with 3 straight wins since Bill Lynch in 2007. The 29-point victory is the largest in the Big Ten for the Hoosiers since they beat Northwestern 34-3 in 2019. And this was UCLA's worst loss in a home opener, being shut out by Stanford 35-0 in 2010.
Ooh.
So we had 3 fun things occur in this game, and none of them obviously favored UCLA at all. I'm not sure. Obviously we have 2 Big Ten teams here. I have to start remembering. I have to talk about both sides. Again, I didn't have much to answer for UCLA. Garbers had a untimely fumble that then led, I believe, to the second touchdown for Indiana.
Yep.
You just got boat raced. The other thing I noted, and I texted you this, when I got home, I turned the game on. I'm like, why is there no sound on this game? First of all, I'm not a Noah Eagle fan. I think NBC needs to.
I like Noah Eagle. No, I like Noah Eagle. No. We're not accepting Noah Eagle slander on this podcast.
Maybe part of it was there was literally no sound from the crowd.
Well, I don't know how good NBC's acoustics are, because that's not that Notre Dame games are particularly raucous environments, but I feel like every time I've ever watched one of those, you don't really get a great grasp of the crowd sound.
Yeah, it was just it sounded like it was dead. I'm like, are we playing in COVID again? There's no sound to this game. But hey, props to the Hoosiers, man. I sent Sammy a message after this. He sent me a little GIF when I said they were my lock, and he knew that I hadn't gotten one yet. He goes, "Why would you do that?" And I sent him, I was like, "See, man, that's all you guys needed was just lock of the week."
He was due. I am interested to see how Indiana performs as they start to get into the portion of their schedule where they're going to get some equal talent. I happened accidentally against some JMU fans or JMU adjacent people on a message board where they were talking about how they seem to struggle in games where the talent advantage was not in their favor. And I think as good as IU has looked so far, you definitely would say that they have had the talent advantage in all 3 games so far.
Yeah.
Definitely will this week against Charlotte. They might against Maryland. But then you kind of get into that middle third of the schedule where you got Nebraska, Washington, Michigan State, Michigan. Certainly will be interesting to see how the Hoosiers play once they get deeper into conference play here. Speaking of teams that continue to perform well, Nebraska 34, Northern Iowa 3, barely a cover here, Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
Barely a cover.
They got it.
Good teams win, great teams cover.
Did you take them?
No, I took Northern Iowa. I thought they were going to have a little bit of a letdown.
I think I might have caught some ground on you this week, Ryan.
You did. We are tied. Now. You caught up to me. I did the math beforehand. Nothing. I think the most notable thing in this one is that there was not a letdown for Nebraska. Mm-hmm. After a big emotional win last week, they came out, they took care of business. They scored touchdowns on their first 3 drives of the game. They only had 4 drives in the first half. Their last one ended with a turnover on downs at the Northern Iowa 25 with 30 seconds left in the half. So aggressive call there by Matt Rule to go for it instead of kicking a field goal. I like the killer instinct there. They didn't come out slow. They didn't come out sluggish. They came out and they performed. Dylan Raiola, you mentioned it already earlier in the show, threw his first interception of his college career in this game, but he was otherwise particularly efficient. 17 of 23, 247 yards and 2 scores. Nebraska only ran the ball 22 times in this game, but again, not a ton of possessions to go around, a little bit more clock control. I think Northern Iowa started the third quarter with a hold on, what was it? No, where was it? I definitely saw this. Okay, it was their first drive of the game. They went 16 plays, 62 yards, and it took 10 minutes off the clock.
These teams are doing a good job playing keep away, right?
Yeah.
That's how you hang around a little bit.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of that. And then their last drive of the game, they turned the ball over on downs. They went 12 plays, 73 yards. I guess it only took 4 minutes off the clock. But, yeah, man, so nothing super jumping out at me on this one. But, again, it's one of those games that if you're Nebraska, you want the story to be there is no story. You want to come out. You want to take care of your business. You want to win the game handily. And this one was never really in doubt.
You want no frosting.
You do not want you continue to defrost your program. You can that is certainly notable. You continue to defrost your program, and you are 3-0 heading into a big Friday night ranked game this weekend, which we will talk about later in the week.
Yeah, I had just a few more pieces on this. Raiola 209 yards in the first half. He completed 13 of his first 14 passes, 11 in a row. Play of the game though, Raiola rolls right, sidesteps a pass rusher, and found a wide-open Jalen Lloyd on the left side of the field for 59 yards. And then the next play, Ja'Cory Barney the third, runs 10 yards on reverse for the touchdown. So good movement, as we've already seen with Raiola, to be able to throw on the run, hit the play. And a keynote for their defense, the Huskers have allowed a total of 20 points through 3 games this year. They've held their first 3 opponents to 10 points or fewer for the first time since 2005, almost 20 years ago. And that's impressive
was a good year.
Yeah, given that this Nebraska defense was a top 15 defense last year. So already trending pretty well. And as Ryan mentioned, you host Illinois Friday night. What a Big Ten Friday night lights action we have.
Northwestern 31, Eastern Illinois 7. We pushed, Clinton. We pushed.
Push it real good.
My bold prediction was that there was going to be an FCS upset. I said if there was likely going to be one, it would be this one. I was not sure how Jack Lausch was going to be at the quarterback position, and he was pretty good. Pretty good, all things considered. Yeah. I think the case for Mike Wright as your quarterback is the running aspect that he brings, but it has to be encouraging as a Northwestern fan to see Lausch not only throw the ball well, 20 of 31, 227, 2 scores, no turnovers. That's good. But he also ran it 7 times for 62 yards, had a 26-yard rush in this one. So that gives you maybe not as explosive of a running threat as you had with Mike Wright, but having a quarterback who can still kind of run that read option game, that RPO game where you have to give the defense something to think about other than just keying on the running back, that's notable for sure. So not a win for Northwestern that you're sitting there being like, oh man, that was fantastic. But good 24-point win. You almost covered the spread. You're sitting at 2-1 now, heading into a big game against Washington.
Yeah, you mentioned it, Laos. Pretty solid first start. Started slowly though. Only hit 4 of his first 13 pass attempts. And I was kind of reading into an article on that, and he was saying, my feet were kind of choppy. I wasn't settling in when I was throwing. It was definitely some nerves going through me. And this is a hometown kid, mind you. He's from Chicago.
Yep.
So he's from the region, getting to lead the team that he grew up rooting for. That is pretty awesome. I wish him all the best. But you mentioned the rushing upside. You don't need Michael Vick back there.
No.
You just need an effective runner. And I look at that as kind of stick a needle in my eye here as bringing this game up again. But Joe Burrow, for instance, right? Joe's not the most freakishly athletic guy in the world, but he'll go run for 10, 15 yards on you in key times when he needs to get a first down. So that's really all Northwestern needs. My last note on this one, I had Northwestern dominated the total yardage, 450 to 207. They had 203 yards on the ground, and they held the Panthers to 40. And the defense pitched a second-half shutout. Again, if you're going to pitch a shutout, I don't care what level you do it at. Let's see what they got next week with Washington.
To close us off for the recap portion of the show, Maryland 27, Virginia 13, Clinton.
Ryan, real quick, there's only one thing you need to say for this game. Ty Felton. That's the only thing we need to talk about.
Well, Ty Felton was pretty good, but let's do so big ups to the Maryland defense in this game. Let's just drive chart the first half here for both teams. Punt, fumble, punt, interception, missed field goal, punt, touchdown.
Did Maryland play in the Big Ten West? That's what that felt like.
That did. That was a very Big Ten West first half. So Maryland down 6-0. They get a nice 7-play, 47-yard touchdown drive towards the end of the first half to go up 7-6. Unfortunately for them, they coughed it right back up. And Virginia scores in 49 seconds to go up 13-7 at halftime. But coming out of the half, the first 5 drives for Virginia, we had 3 punts, an interception, and a fumble that covered 18 plays for 50 yards. And during that span, it went from 13-7 Virginia to 27-13 Maryland. That was your final score in this one. Mm-hmm. So big ups for the Maryland defense in this one. That Billy Edwards to Ty Felton connection in this one, once again, huge. I am a big Ty Felton fan. We talked about that in the preseason, and he has continued to show that throughout the first 3 games here. 9 catches for 117 yards in this one. He's up to 27 catches for 447 yards and 4 scores through 3 games. Very good.
Off the final piece, he's averaging 16.6 yards per catch.
Not rookie numbers. Those are not rookie numbers.
Those are big. So, the only thing that was I put a little fun fact in here. Saber was the only Cavalier with any success slowing Felton down. Unfortunately, he's the team's horse mascot. Felton accidentally ran into the horse during the pregame trot, and that is the only Virginia Cavalier to slow him down in this game.
That's why they pay him the big bucks, folks. Clinton Boring with the stats that you didn't know you needed.
The defense held UVA to 3 of 15 on third downs. The Cavaliers are now 9 of 40 on this season for third down. Not a great recipe to win games. And then Maryland owned the time of possession, 35 minutes, 36 seconds to UVA's 24 minutes, 24 seconds. Maryland has now also won 14 non-conference games. They are second to only who, Ryan?
Oh, boy. 14 non-conference games, second to only who? Are we counting bowl games here?
I think it's regular season.
Well, it's got to be Ohio State then, because they haven't. When was the last time they lost to? Oh, they lost to Oregon 3 years ago. Michigan,
Georgia 24.
Oh, I thought you just meant in the Big Ten.
Yeah, so impressive though, right?
That is very impressive. That is very impressive.
Second to Georgia, like September, Maryland. It's a thing. They win non-conference games.
I was going to say maybe not because Georgia doesn't play anyone, but I forgot they blew the brakes off of Clemson 2 weeks ago.
And they played them, 2 years ago and beat them. They didn't blow their doors off, but they beat them.
No, but that's when we thought Clemson was still good.
As if we don't now. Maryland should get a pretty big test this coming Saturday. They play Villanova. Oh, I'm sorry. This is football, not basketball. So
3-1.
Should be another big game for
3-1
Felton and Edwards.
3-1 Terps. Yeah, they're going to be kicking themselves that they lost that Michigan State game.
We have made it to Ryan's segment of. We don't have a sound, do we?
I don't have a what the hell man sound.
What the hell, man?
I blew you there. There you go, man. I blew it.
All right, Ryan, lead us off. Who's your first what the hell man?
Davis Warren, my dude. That's it. We talked about it enough. I listen. You mentioned it last week. There's no need to bag on the kid, but I just can't believe that that's the best quarterback option that the defending national champions have.
Yep.
That's all. That's all.
My first what the hell man. Well, I'm just going to kick a man while he's down. It's a what the hell man. Michigan's defense with only one sack.
Bagging on the Wolverines tonight.
Like one sack against Arkansas State. What are they in the Sun Belt? You guys can get more than one sack, and you let them lead you in passing and receiving categories. Come on, defense. You got to be better than that. What the hell, man?
What the hell, man? Second for me, targeting. We need to have a very serious conversation about this rule in the offseason because there were 2 plays in this Indiana game that were just absolutely atrocious targeting calls. There was one, I don't remember the defensive lineman's name for Indiana. I should have wrote it down. I should have went back and looked at it, but I did not. But Ethan Garbers fumbles the snap. The dude died. Like Ethan Garbers, he picks us up. When he got hit, he was squatting. This man was squatting Clinton. His head was 2.5 feet off the ground. The lineman dove for the ball, and their heads collided. Mm-hmm. It happened to be the crown of the helmet, and he got ejected for targeting. We cannot be ejecting people from football games for plays like this. It is an atrocity, Clinton. It is ridiculous. This cannot continue to stand. I understand the well-intentioned point of the rule. Look, there was one in the Florida A&M game where a dude got targeted or ejected for targeting because he hit a guy in the ass with the crown of his helmet.
Oh my God.
Which is not the first time I have seen that happen. There was a Notre Dame player who got ejected for something similar 2 years ago, I think. Mm-hmm. And I get the intent of the rule is to try to protect the players. There needs to be some sort of and I get making the referees have another judgment call when they already can't even do their jobs well enough is probably not the best idea, but we cannot be ejecting people for plays like that. And then the other one was, one of the defensive backs. There's a throw over the middle. The UCLA receiver is diving to make the play. He's diving into the defensive back who lowers his shoulder, seemingly to brace for the contact, and hits the guy in the head. What the hell is he supposed to do there? Get out of the way? Olay him? That's not football, Clinton. I am by no means one of these old school guys who's like, oh, back in my day, they used to kill each other and blah, blah, blah. I get it. There needs to, the lack of serious dialogue about head injuries in contact sports is disgusting. But if you're going to take these hits out of the game, it's not you can't have contact. What's the defender supposed to do there? So there needs to be some kind of discussion about this targeting rule. I don't know if it's tiers to it where you're only ejecting people if it's very clearly a malicious intent or yada, yada, yada. But the fact that 2 people are now not playing in the first half in their next game because of those plays is ridiculous. It's absurd. It should not be allowed to stand.
We're going to be, in 10 years, we're all going to be running around watching flag football. Keep this up.
Probably.
Then football's going to be really disappointing because contact is what makes football great. My second, what the hell, man? We're traveling back to West Lafayette. Riley Leonard, what the hell, man? You still don't have a passing touchdown in a game that you scored 66 points.
My uncle... So my dad sent another one of those I'm golfing text messages. I have more faith in golfing than I do this team. And we were texting back and forth, and my dad's like, you guys scared me because the way that you started phrasing this, I thought it was bad. And he's like, and my uncle was like, is 42 points at halftime without throwing a touchdown pass a record? I have no idea, but it could be.
It's got to be close.
Remarkable. Just remarkable.
All right. Do you have any more what the hell, man?
Yes, my third one. I could rant about this for 15 minutes, but we've already gone way long, so I will not. My last what the hell, man, is the defensive engine in college football 25 is something we need to have a serious conversation about because it is atrocious. It is piss. It is awful. And I feel like nobody is talking about how bad it is because we're all just happy to have this game back. EA Sports should not be allowed to get a pass for making another game with dog shit gameplay like they do every year with NHL just because, it's happy to have a college football game back. These guys suck. They're terrible at their jobs. They have a monopoly on the sports gameplay industry, and that's the only reason they make money. I guarantee you that people are going to hate this game in 3 years because all they're going to do is pour money into College Ultimate Team. They're going to take features away, and then they'll add them back in 5 years and be like, look at this cool new thing that we did. EA Sports, you suck. Clinton, cut this video, tag these fucking assholes in it. I'm coming for you. I am fucking coming for you, EA Sports. You guys are awful. Stop sucking at your jobs and make a game that doesn't have awful gameplay. That's it.
I won't be able to top that one. But
what the hell, man?
If you guys really want me to top that, you're going to have to do a separate YouTube video with me to talk the Bengals game today at the start of their season, and then I'll top it. I promise you that one will not be safe for kids to listen to, YouTube. My last what the hell, man, is another what the hell, man. This Iowa offense that ended the Iowa State game and then did the first 2 quarters of the Troy game looks so similar to the production under Brian Ferentz. Mm-hmm. You were trailing 14-10 at the half to Troy. The Trojans, not the USC Trojans.
No.
But the little mini Trojans, the Troy Trojans. Come on, guys. You got to figure this out.
Not the Magnum. Not Magnums. No Magnums there.
You're shopping in the mini section, Iowa. Let's get it going. Come on.
If you guys are still listening to this podcast, I'm sorry.
I hope you stayed around.
Or thank you.
You got condom talk and Ryan ranting about D for college football.
Yeah, you got a couple F-bombs there at the end. I couldn't contain myself. As always, please follow the show on your podcast platforms. Drop us a star review and a rating if you feel so inclined. It helps us grow the show. We'd really appreciate it. Always open to suggestions, things you want to hear more of, things you want to hear less of. If you want to hear me stop dropping F-bombs in the direction of EA Sports, just let me know. Or conversely, if you want to hear more F-bombs, that's also on the table. We are going to be back live 9 p.m. tomorrow, as Clinton mentioned last
9:30.
Oh, wait, we're 9:30 tomorrow. That's right. See it. Jeffrey the Greek from the Eyes on Big Ten podcast is going to be joining us. He had asked us to go a little bit later. We have a chat. This better not be a request for more F-bombs. Sitting here playing CFP 25 as we speak. All right, Kirk. Love that.
Kirk is the man. Between Kirk and Adam, they're the most verbal. And I work with Adam, so he talks to me every day about it. But I know they are consistent listeners. I love it. I'm digging it. I know we got a couple Notre Dame people and Penn State people who listen pretty religiously as well. So thank you guys very much for tuning in with us.
And you will definitely not want to miss tomorrow's episode with more Big Ten talk. We got some ranked matchups to talk about in week 4, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. We will see you once again tomorrow night.
See you.